Severe thunderstorms with tornadoes, large hail, damaging winds, and flash flooding are possible in the lower 48 today. And yes, even snowfall is in the forecast. I'm going to show you all of that here in just a minute. But in the meantime, tropical storm Melissa continues to strengthen in the Caribbean and will bring life-threatening conditions to some of the areas along its path. That includes Jamaica, western Haiti, eastern Cuba, and parts of the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, and even Bermuda is in the path of this storm the way it looks now. It continues to get its act together. You can see this on satellite right here, and this is where we're going to start. And look at that. It looks like kind of a shrimp look. When you see this, that means the system is getting better organized. It's reflected in the wind speed as well, as we now have a 70-mile-per-hour tropical cyclone. It's getting more and more vertically stacked, and we talked about that yesterday. Spent a good deal of time explaining the mechanics of a tropical cyclone and what's needed and what's likely to be in place over the next 48 to 72 hours for the storm. So take a look at that video. I'll have it linked here. Anyway, welcome to the channel, folks. Jason is my name. Been tracking weather for a long time. Looked at all the data this morning. Going to take a look at the track of the storm, how strong it's going to get, who it's going to impact, and then we'll look at the weather across the lower 48 as well. But as I said, you can see it getting better and better organized here on the satellite image. Here's the radar composite across the Caribbean, and there are some rain bands, and some of these are not showing up, but they're actually getting in farther to Jamaica. But you can see a big shield of heavy rain going to just pound the peninsula here. I think it's the Tribune Peninsula of Haiti, with heavy rain over the next couple of days, going to move very slowly to the west and inundate areas along Jamaica, along and north of the track. There is some considerable uncertainty in exactly where the center of circulation will move, but it is generally going to be somewhere in this area here, folks. And that is where we're looking for the biggest impacts to occur, particularly as it starts to get rapidly stronger later on. Here is one of the hurricane models, and I'm going to run this one out here and show you. This is the HWRF. And I'm not sure why that other thing was on the screen, but there we go. We get on out here toward tomorrow morning, and it is still well south of Jamaica, but look how strong it is getting just in the course of the next 24 hours. This model drops at about 40 millibars or so, 945, and this model takes it very close to the southern tip of, or the southern coastline of Jamaica. But look at all of the rain that has fallen as a result of this track. Heavy rain, tropical storm force winds, even hurricane force winds here as we get on in toward overnight Sunday and into Monday morning. But the eye just grazes, the eye wall grazes the tip of Jamaica and then runs on toward Cuba as we get into Tuesday morning, and makes landfall Tuesday morning as a 930 millibar storm, probably a Category 4 storm as it makes landfall into Cuba. Big takeaway is no matter which model you look at, we're dealing with a major hurricane, at least a Category 3, and some models continue to show Category 4 and 5 status. And we run this on through, by the time we get on through Tuesday evening into the overnight hours, Tuesday night, we're out here in approaching the Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas. And so, folks, you need to batten down the hatches. This thing is coming, and there's not really any way around that at this point. It's going to be a very strong hurricane. The exact track is unknown, but the general track is becoming more and more consolidated in the modeling. This is the HMON, and it takes it, by the time we get to tomorrow morning, down to a 944 millibar hurricane. You can see those tightly packed isobars. It continues to strengthen as it moves south of Jamaica here, and then sort of levels off at 950 or 60 or so, and then it takes it to the eastern section of eastern half. It's actually the western half. I say eastern, I mean western. The western portion of Jamaica. And look at that. Tracks it right over the island. Many of these models and ensemble members track it right over Jamaica, and it loses a little steam as it interacts with the train, gains a little back, and then runs over Cuba again, and then heads on north of Cuba. And by the time we get into the overnight hours Tuesday night, it's rolling through the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos, and then on its way up into the Atlantic. And you can't really tell any land masses at this point because it's a zoomed in view. But well out here into Thursday, it's up in the Atlantic. So the next few days are going to be rather dicey. Here's the Google DeepMind Ensemble Suite. And you can see almost every single one of these members, with the exception of just a few, take it into Category 4 or 5 status. And there it is. All of them track it along, over, or near Jamaica into eastern Cuba, and then up into the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos, and then make a beeline for Bermuda. This is going to be a strong hurricane when it gets near Bermuda too, so don't let your guard down there. Could be a major, even if it's not not, it's still going to be highly impactful as it moves in your direction. Here is the official hurricane track. And you can see, look at this. It's a hurricane this morning. Tomorrow morning, it's moved a whopping like 5 miles. It hasn't moved very much at all. And some of the modeling is showing rapid intensification over the next 48 hours as shear lightens up and it feels the very, very warm waters. And down here in the Caribbean, very warm. It's just upwelling warm water. A lot of times out here in the Atlantic, it upwells water and that water is cool and it helps to weaken the storm. That's not the case here in the Caribbean. So even though it's slowly moving, it's not going to weaken like it normally would. It's going to be feeling lots of warm water. The shear is coming down. It's getting better organized. And the official track takes it by Monday at 2 p.m. It's still south of Jamaica. So we've got quite a bit of time over warm water, lower shear, and then it gets on into Jamaica. By the time we get into overnight Monday, it's going to landfall at night, potentially if this track holds. And again, this is the cone of uncertainty, so it could go. It looks a lot more like a cone now than a circle. And the center could pass anywhere within this cone. Even if the center doesn't pass directly over, it's still going to be very, very rocky and life-threatening here for Jamaica either way. But the track takes it over, and then by the time we get into overnight Wednesday, it's eastern Cuba. Overnight Thursday, it's accelerating. It's feeling shear. It's starting to weaken. It's weakened below a major hurricane status, potentially. And so this is the official track out here toward Thursday. And then Friday, it would be approaching Bermuda. So that's what we've got to look at, folks. There's the official, not the official hurricane track, but it's some of the hurricane global models. And you can see those kind of much better than that Google DeepMind ensemble that shows, this shows all of the individual model members, and they take it right over or near Jamaica and eastern Cuba. And there's Bermuda way up here. Can you see that? It's a little dot in the ocean. There it is, Bermuda. So you are right in the dead center of the spread of all of these different models here. So you really have to start getting your preparations done. Yesterday, we only had a couple of models getting into Category 4. We have a few more of those now, as maybe it's starting to see some of that rapid intensification. Nobody's taking it to Category 5 anymore, but that's not out of the question either. We're going to watch how rapidly this thing gets underway, but it is looking better on satellite. Looking at the wave action out here in the Caribbean, there's going to be storm surge all in and around Jamaica and parts of Haiti. Really, parts of Cuba are going to feel that the most as we go on the next couple of days. Wave action looks really, really strong as this thing gets its act together and starts to move through. And there we take it out to Tuesday, and then high waves. We're looking at waves here, 22-foot seas, and lots of storm surge coming in as we get on out to Tuesday and then Wednesday, and then it goes on through and begins to bother the Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas, and will produce a lot of waves up in the Atlantic, folks. And that's really the update as it stands now. The bottom line is going to be very, very strong as it begins to feel the lower shear. Going to get a very strong hurricane, rapidly intensifying over the next 48 hours, looking likely to get to Category 3, Category 4 status at least, and landslides and heavy, heavy rain, life-threatening flash flooding, high winds are going to come to Jamaica. You're going to have a couple of days of heavy rain, tropical storm force winds before an eye wall pushes in. That's very, very bad. And I can't stress enough how you need to be prepared for this down there, even as part of Haiti here and over into eastern Cuba, Turks and Caicos, Bahamas. Get those preparations ready. Prepare for life-threatening flash flooding, high winds, and landslides, and all of the above, folks. So that's your tropical update. We're going to take a look at what's happening over the lower 48. Got some tornadoes in the forecast for parts of the south central plains, and some snow in the forecast as well. We're going to look at all that right now. I'm going to start here with a satellite image, and you can see right off the bat two big areas of stormy weather across the lower 48. One is this big swirl in the plains as a storm system is really cranking up here, producing severe weather through Texas yesterday, and you can see a line of storms here moving through southern Louisiana off into the coast and out into the Gulf, with rain under these clouds back into Kansas. Another big storm system moving into the Pacific Northwest, bringing a storm front in with heavy rain, snow in the higher elevations, and strong winds. And then, of course, some low clouds and drizzle and occasional showers continue in the Great Lakes and the Northeast, where it has just been cloudy and damp and dank for several days. Very nice here in the Southeast, just some blow-off clouds here in Cold Rain's neck of the woods. I can actually see those outside from this storm system in the plains, but other than that, looking very nice. And it's going to stay that way for much of the weekend in the Southeast until we get into tomorrow night, where we start to see some energy from that southern system move in and start to provide some rain. But in the meantime, The alerts maps lit up, particularly out here in the Northwest, where we've got wind warnings, winter weather advisories, wind advisories. We're going to see snow in the higher elevations to the tune of maybe a foot or so, with gusts in the 50s out here and lots of rain beyond that. Dense fog advisories here in the plains. That'll be burning off as we start to heat the atmosphere up. And of course, flash flood watches up through tomorrow for places just east of Jackson or west of Jackson, back in through Monroe, Shreveport, south of Dallas, right around Houston and San Antonio and Austin. We're looking at flash flood watches. Going to see some heavy rain continue as these thunderstorms fire back up again later today, and then some freeze warnings and frost advisories here in the Ohio Valley left over. One more thing I want to show you here. This is the alerts map for today, and so here is also the categorical risk for severe weather, and you can see that severe weather risk from San Antonio back to Monroe, Louisiana. And if we take a look at this, sort of how it's broken out, tornado threats, particularly from Houston over into near Baton Rouge and New Orleans and places like that, as spin in the atmosphere is going to be more prevalent down here. But the tornado risk extends all along the Gulf Coast in those areas. We're going to see a wind threat as well around these areas too, even a little bit of a wind threat up here near Lewiston up in parts of Idaho and Washington State. But again, wind is a good bet down here with some of these thunderstorms as they mature later, and even some hail possible. 2-inch hailstones are possible down here in the Houston area, so watch out for that. Freezing levels are kind of low, and elapse rates are pretty good as well in this area. Here's what happened yesterday out in Texas. Saw quite a few reports of severe weather, wind in the blue triangles, then green triangles are hail, and then of course the red is tornado activity. A couple of land spouts in the panhandle of Texas, and that is looking at least possible today as we move through the afternoon, heading into the evening hours, particularly down here in the Houston and lower Baton Rouge type areas in Louisiana. And so as we take a look this morning, you can see that cluster of thunderstorm activity moving through Louisiana and rain extending back into Oklahoma and Kansas around the border. And then look what happens this afternoon. Louisiana will stabilize for a while. Texas will destabilize as we get some heating going, and we see a cluster of thunderstorms begin to develop under the cold core, and supercells are possible, but they'll quickly merge into line segments and clusters, and that's where we're going to see the potential for wind and organized wind and some hail and tornadoes, as well as this line gets together with some of the more intense line segments. You'll see some spin and even thunders possible back into Oklahoma and Arkansas. That will all push east into the overnight, kind of die out for the most part, although some of the activity will hang together, gets into over here toward New Orleans and into the lower portion of Mississippi. Showers to start the day in Arkansas, Oklahoma, parts of Missouri, and over into western Tennessee, and moving into western Alabama as well. And that will just continue through the day and push on to the east, but the severe threat will be less. Looking at the low-level spin with some of these thunderstorms, this is the low-level helicity map, and you can see as we get into the afternoon, the model is showing some of these thunderstorms with rotation. So that occurs just south of Dallas in here from San Antonio over to Shreveport, Louisiana. And you can see as we get into the evening hours, that threat shifts mostly into Louisiana with some of these stronger updrafts rotating. So certainly tornadoes are a possibility, and even a strong tornado or two into the overnight hours would not be out of the question in parts of Louisiana. So you all stay weather aware and make sure you have a way to receive alerts. Keep your devices handy through the afternoon, and especially into the evening and overnight when things move through at night. It's very, very difficult to stay alert if you don't have your devices on. Bigger picture out there is that storm system moving into the Pacific Northwest. There's the one in the plains, a few showers here, high pressure kind of dominating much of the east, keeping a wedging coming down the Alps, keeping it a little bit cooler there. If we're going out into the evening hours, you see more snow and rain pushing into the northwest. That's just going to continue over the next couple of days. We get into Sunday afternoon, see some thunderstorms and showers here in the southeast, pushing into the western sections of the southeast. More energy continuing to come in the Pacific Northwest as we go through the overnight hours. We start our day wet in the southeast. Take those umbrellas with you as you head on out to work. Same here in the northern plains, and continuing to see showers and clouds up here in the Maine and New England areas, and then more energy just continues to come in. Finally, that'll settle down as we get toward midweek out here in the Pacific Northwest. Temperatures will be below normal in the east and the west with storm systems coming in, and near normal in the southern plains as we get into tomorrow. There's the warm air coming in out ahead of the system moving into the west that will feature above normal temperatures in the northern plains back into the south as well, northeast down to the mid-Atlantic and into the upper southeast, still going to be a little bit below normal as we get on into Monday to start the week, and then above normal in the southwest, below normal up in the northwest is the way it's looking right now to start our week, and above normal in the central plains as well. Here's the total precipitation over the next 6 days according to the European Ensemble. GFS is similar to this, but the European Ensemble is pretty good with what it's showing here in terms of the near-term stuff. So we'll just look at this for a general idea. But heaviest precipitation looks to be from the Ohio Valley down through the southeast where we need the rain, looking at potentially a widespread area of 1 to 3 inches of rain in this area. Of course, total precipitation up here in the Pacific Northwest looking pretty good too, particularly in the mountains where they'll wring out some of that air, looking definitely dry here in the southwest. And then finally, total snowfall going to be falling pretty heavily up here in the Cascades and the Olympics and the Rockies, and looking at potentially 1 to 2 feet over the next 6 days. Some snow maybe even making it into the lower elevations, although not a lot of it. May see some flakes flying out east too over the next several days as a couple of these storm systems wind up dragging some colder air, especially aloft here in the Appalachian Mountains, all the way up into places like the Adirondacks, and the White and Green Mountains could pick up a little bit of snow over the next 6 days. So starting to feel a little bit like winter on some of these maps, folks. And that's about it for the weather. Did have a couple of shakes this morning up in California, looking at a couple of 3.1s, 3.0s. If you felt that and you're listening to me from out there, put it in the comments, let me know. And of course, over here, you can't see it on this map, but even near where Cold Rain lives, out in Marion, about 25 minutes away, we had a couple of small earthquakes. Some people felt those, like 2.1 or something like that. So I did not. Unfortunately, I've never felt an earthquake. Would like to do that one time, not a big one. But in any event, folks, that's the show for today. Jason is my name. Cold Rain's Weather World is the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have a prayer request or anything that you want to ask about, please put it in the comment section. I'll look in at all of those comments and respond to them throughout the day. Subscribe if you haven't done so. Give the content a like. It all helps YouTube push the channel out. We can grow it together, trying to get up to 10,000 subscribers. That's the next step, and we're making good progress and really appreciate all the support. So I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll be back again with another update soon. Take care, everybody.